He just left something at someone else's door and was stopped by a white police officer. The officer wanted to see what he had brought, but he nervously tried to push the cart away. As a result, he was not only held against the car, but he was also taken to the police station. The white man thought he had accomplished something great, but he ended up running into big trouble. Just a second ago, the black man was trembling in the corner, and in the next, he was eating burgers with the police. The white man who apprehended him had to write an 8,000-word self-criticism and also had to become a full-time driver to help him continue his deliveries. Yet it was this seemingly simple-minded black man who changed the whole town with his sincerity. James, due to a congenital delay in brain development, appeared mature but was actually hiding a 5-year-old child's heart. He liked to push a shopping cart around the town, collecting things that others didn't want. His strange appearance made people stare, and parents would quickly pull their children away if they saw him. James was so used to this that he didn't mind at all. Despite his intellect, he still had things he enjoyed. Every time he saw the playground team practicing, he would stop and watch for a long time. It was because of his enthusiasm that he was discovered by the coach, and hence his destiny started to spin. One day, a student accidentally kicked the ball out of the playground, and James happened to be passing by. The student asked him to help pick up the ball, but he thought the ball had been given to him, so he put it in his cart and left. The student complained to the coach, who only smiled and didn't say anything. However, James and the coach's actions annoyed the players, who decided to retaliate against James the next day. The players locked him in a small dark room, insulted him verbally, and crazily smashed the door with a football. When the coach opened the door, James, terrified, was seen cowering in a corner shaking. His hands and feet were also taped up. Seeing this, the coach quickly approached him with caution and gentleness, and used a small knife to cut open the tape on his body. Freed, James quickly ran out of the room, even when tripped by the door frame and falling to the ground. He stood up and fled without looking back. The coach looked at these unruly students sternly and said, "Since you all love to play so much, let's start our training time from home tomorrow, so you all can enjoy yourselves." The next day, James came to the school playground again, and the coach quickly went to check on him. James handed over the ball he had picked up that day, knowing that the players had bullied him because of this ball. However, the coach didn't take the ball from him and even sincerely apologized for the players. He not only invited James to train on the field, but also promised that the previous incident would not happen again. James didn't accept, choosing to push his cart away quietly, perhaps still remembering the coach's kindness from the last time. He didn't forget to look back and wave at the coach with a smile after a few steps. After training ended that afternoon, the coach didn't directly send the players home, but had them run back and forth on the playground. They kept running from the time when the sun was still high in the sky until it started to get dark. James, standing outside the field, saw all of this. He knew it was the coach's punishment for the players' prank. Before long, the team had its annual football league. Before each rally, the coach would have the players close their eyes to experience the cheers of victory in advance. After everyone's passion was aroused, the players would rush into the tournament, releasing their youthful hormones. Under the coach's calm tactic guidance, the seed player Johnny was unstoppable, scoring one after another. With the cooperation of the step-in players, the team easily won the final victory. While everyone was cheering and celebrating, the coach noticed James standing outside the fence. He was quietly watching every match, his dull eyes filled with desire for rugby. After the match, the coach and the parents of the players usually held a celebration. The parents gave high praise to the coach and were confident that the team could enter the finals. When the players were undergoing daily training on the playground, James appeared outside the field as if arranged. The coach noticed James's intentions, but he was afraid that calling him in directly would scare him, so he had the assistant coach bring him a bottle of water. It wasn't until the end of training that the coach walked over. He opened the large gate and carefully greeted him. No matter what the coach asked, James would always stand there nervously without saying a word. It was only when he heard that there were burgers in the room that he perked up. As soon as he walked into the office, he became interested in the radio on the desk and kept repeating the word radio. The coach couldn't figure out his name for a while, so he simply named him Radio. In order to gain James's trust, they not only fed him burgers, but also gave him the radio he loved. Seeing their kindness, James finally let down all his guard. After eating and drinking his fill, the coach personally drove him home. Seeing him hugging the gifted radio and refusing to let it go, the coach took the opportunity to propose that he help with training on the playground tomorrow. Upon hearing this, the dull look in his eyes became a little brighter. However, James's mother was full of cautious eyes. Because she knew that her son was often bullied and used outside, she didn't believe a white man could be so good to her son. The coach did not ask much about James's specific situation, nor did he explain why he was sending James home. The next day, James arrived at the playground early as promised. The coach announced, starting today, James would be an assistant coach. Whatever disagreements they had previously, no one was allowed to bully him anymore. The players were confused by the coach's decision. Although they didn't understand, they had no choice but to agree in the face of the coach's seriousness. James finally made it to the football field he had always dreamt of, and even though he was only responsible for picking up balls and other miscellaneous tasks, he was still quite happy. However, some players with bad intentions were still discontented and always made small moves when the coach wasn't paying attention. They would either hit the ball out of James's hand or deliberately knock him down with a blocking board, or even deliberately rush at him abruptly during training. James didn't take this to heart and dutifully cleaned up the playground every day. He chanted slogans with the players and meticulously repeated every action coached by the trainer. After some time, everyone stopped giving James a hard time, and his cooperation with the players became more and more tacit. During matches, he would follow the coach and watch every game of the team. He would also run onto the field to cheer for every player and even join the cheerleading team to cheer for the team. He never held back his cheers and conscientiously remembered the result of every game. Even when the players became upset at times due to a loss, he would still go up and cheerfully motivate them. Perhaps it was James's encouraging cheerleading that turned the score around, and each player suddenly became enthusiastic. The audience also began to stand up and cheer for James. Just when everything was going in a positive direction, some parents expressed different opinions. They mocked the coach for turning the professional team into a circus, allowing an innocent black man to perform like a clown. The coach didn't want to argue with them. To better understand James, the coach drove to his mother's house and asked what disease James had. However, his mother said that even the doctors were not sure. They only said that James developed slower than others and his father was already dead. To maintain a normal life, she had to work at least 12 hours a day and didn't have much time to spend with James. But James was a good man with a kind heart. It's just that nobody wanted to take the time to understand him. But she was wrong. The coach in front of her was willing to. One day, the team was going to another place for a match, but the principal told the coach that James was not a student at the school and he wasn't normal. If there's an emergency situation on the road because of his epilepsy or any other disease, it would be hard to explain, so he's not allowed to take James with him. The principal didn't understand why the coach was doing this. Are you helping James, or are you just using him as a mascot for the team? The coach didn't explain much in the face of the principal's misunderstanding, just stopped James from getting on the bus when he was about to, and apologized to him sincerely. Upon hearing this, James froze on the spot. The coach didn't know how to comfort James either. He could only apologize again and again, before hurriedly getting on the bus. Watching the school bus slowly drive away, James's mood was like the pouring rain. In order not to miss any information from the team, James took out the radio he always carried with him. On a rainy night, he brought his radio to the field. He tuned the radio to listen to the live commentary of the team's match. James felt as if he was on the field with his teammates, and clumsily tried to emulate the movements that were being described over the radio. He fell over and over again but was not afraid. At the last goal of the match, he imitated the player's setup. After a strong kick, he fell heavily on the ground. The ball went off target, and the team also lost the match. Alone, James knelt in the pouring rain, very upset. He loved both rugby and the coach and teammates he had spent time with. To make up for James, not only did the coach take him to the restaurant for a big meal, but he also allowed him to lead the team in the next game. Hearing the cheering from the audience, James was filled with excitement. Because he was too excited, he ended up shouting out the tactics arranged by the coach. This news made the opposing team incredibly happy. Because all the tactics were exposed in advance, the team was completely dominated. At the end of the first half, the team was unsurprisingly far behind. During halftime, key player Johnny expressed his dissatisfaction loudly. He hadn't even been able to touch the ball in the first half. Hearing this, James immediately went to fetch a ball and handed it to Johnny. But it was this simple act by James that gave the coach a new idea for the team's strategy. In the second half, under the new tactics, the players all performed exceptionally well. Johnny outdid himself too. The team quickly turned the tables, and eventually, they won the match. To thank James for his inspiration and companionship throughout the season, the coach gave the championship football to James as a token of appreciation for his time with them. Everyone was happy for him, except Johnny's father. He believed that if it weren't for James, the team could have performed much better. If the coach hadn't been distracted by James, he could have focused more on guiding the team. The coach, similar to the previous time, did not respond. He remembered what James's mother had said about how many people in the world cannot accept kindness because their hearts are filled with evil. James's mother saw her son headlining the front page of the newspaper, and she was immensely proud. She never imagined her son could achieve this much. However, James couldn't bring himself to feel happy, because the end of the season meant he would have to leave the team and return to his earlier life of roaming the streets. However, despite the end of the season, the coach didn't abandon James. In the coach's heart, James was like his own child. He went to the principal and asked if the school could shelter James, promising that he would personally take care of him. Although the principal didn't understand, she didn't object either. That way, James was able to join the school community. During his free time, the coach would teach him to read and write. When he was busy, he even had James help supervise exams. James quickly adapted to life in the school and would warmly greet the other students each day. It seemed that this beautiful life would continue indefinitely, but the calm was once again disrupted. The school board believed that having someone with a mental disorder in the classroom was risky since the school was for students to learn, not a charity organization. This put the principal in a difficult position. She didn't understand why the coach was going this far for a stranger. Again, the coach didn't respond. Seeing James playing basketball with the students, then thinking of the cold-hearted faces of the school board members, he felt a mix of emotions. The boy who had recently hardly dared to speak was now able to blend in well with the students. If James was ruthlessly expelled from the campus, he would go back to being helpless, and this would severely traumatize him. Soon, the town was celebrating the annual Christmas. Upon learning that James's mother would work late into the night, the coach invited friends and acquaintances from the town. Each of them prepared gifts for James. A large number of gifts filled the entire bed of the pickup truck. The coach's daughter also presented the gift she had personally prepared, thinking her father was doing the right thing by getting more people to sympathize with James. However, the coach told his daughter that James didn't need their pity, leaving her unsure how to react. Just as he was about to explain something to his daughter, James suddenly appeared and he stopped himself. After driving James home, the coach gave him a Christmas gift, a beautiful, new model of a radio. Listening to the wonderful music coming from the radio, James couldn't help but dance in the room. It was so easy to bring joy into his heart. His mother was extremely grateful for the coach's efforts, saying that he had given James a second life. She also voiced the question in many people's hearts. Doing good wasn't uncommon, but consistently doing good was rare. So why was the coach so kind to James? Once again, the coach chose to remain silent. The coach believed that love in the world was like a flood, and all he was doing was what was within his abilities. Fortunately, James was a child full of kindness. Since he had received gifts from others, he felt the need to return the favor. He packed his prepared gifts in a small cart and started going from door to door, delivering his presents. His unusual behavior soon caught the attention of the police. Seeing that he was an African-American man with a seemingly unstable mind, pushing a cart full of things, the police thought he must have stolen these items. They stopped James, attempting to get him to explain. However, James, frightened, tried to push the cart away. His uncooperative attitude quickly angered the police, leading to the opening scene. One second, James was shivering in a jail cell, and the next, he was sitting with the police, watching television and eating burgers. The officer who had arrested him was writing a self-criticism statement. Moreover, he would also have to drive James in his patrol car, assisting him in delivering the gifts from house to house. Under the coach's persistent efforts, James was leading a smooth life on the campus. More and more people began to like James, as they were touched by his candid innocence. James also found his value in the school, acting as a discipline committee member in his daily life. If he caught a student misbehaving, he would offer a warm embrace. He would also be an assistant on the basketball court, cheering for the players with all his might. He even became the school's broadcaster, presenting the day's menu to the students every noon. His funny tone always made the students burst into laughter, adding fun to the lifeless school. However, where there is love, there is hate. Johnny was less fond of this wooden man. Johnny had put a lot of effort into winning a basketball championship. He had given the credit ball that was supposed to belong to him to James, and now, this black man was even more popular than him. Johnny decided to take the opportunity to teach James a lesson. He lied to James that the teacher in the next room needed his help and asked him to rush there. James, being kind-hearted, ran into the room without a second thought after hearing someone needed him. However, when he rushed in, he was stunned because it turned out to be a women's locker room. The girls inside were scared and screamed loudly. James, realizing something was wrong, quickly turned around and ran off, while admonishing himself constantly. His kindness had been used by others. Johnny, having accomplished his scheme, couldn't hide his happiness. The next day, when the coach learned of the news, he immediately found James. He knew that James wouldn't do such a thing intentionally and hoped James would reveal who was behind it. However, kind-hearted James refused. Even though he didn't say it, the coach could guess who was responsible. He then went to Johnny. Before Johnny could explain anything, the coach disqualified him from the next day's competition and sternly told him that even in such circumstances, James wouldn't betray him. It was Johnny's own vile conduct that betrayed him. As life went on, more challenges followed. While James was still dealing with the negative impact on the school, he received another blow from the hospital. His only relative, his mother, had passed away due to illness. Upon hearing the news, the coach quickly rushed to James's house. James locked himself in his room and cried, which was in complete disorder. Holding a picture of his mother, James cried, saying, "This is my mom. Mom said we played great ball, and Mom said I'm a good person." He kept repeating his mother's words. The coach kept comforting James softly, holding him in his arms like his own child. The night was destined to be long and silent. In the car, the coach finally revealed the secret in his heart to his daughter. He explained why he had been so nice to James. When he was 12, he had to go from house to house delivering papers every day to make a living. One day, I heard strange noises from an old house. I peered through a crack and made eye contact with a child. He was about my age and seemed to have a mental disorder. He was locked up with barbed wire. I could have saved him, but after walking that route for 2 years, I had done nothing. Until one day, I could no longer hear sounds from that boy. This incident is the most hidden pain in my heart. That's why I am helping James. I want to heal this scar within me. After hearing this, the coach's daughter finally understood her father's actions and the misunderstanding between them faded. When the school board learned about the death of James' sole guardian, they approached the coach. According to their investigation, James had not only trespassed into the female changing room, but also caused a lot of property damage at home. All of these actions indicated that James might lose control at any time. And now that his mother just passed away, the best way would be to send him to a welfare institution. However, the coach was still adamant. If you drive him away now, it would be akin to taking his life, he insisted. The disgruntled school board could only leave in frustration once more. The coach knew that someone was scheming behind the scenes, and it was likely Johnny's father, who had always been against him. Confronted by the coach's accusations, Johnny's father did not deny it. He stated that in order for his son to achieve better results, James must leave the school, making the team more stable. The coach didn't want to argue with such a person and wanted to focus on James. Seeing James, who had just walked out of the sorrow of losing his mother, the coach tried to teach him to write his own name. James clumsily picked up the pen and began to draw wavy circles on the paper. Seeing this, the coach lightly laughed and encouraged him, "You've done great." Thinking he had learned how to write, James filled half a page with these circles, then gave it to Johnny along with his beloved radio, hoping to comfort him after his game suspension. Although Johnny couldn't understand what was written on the paper, he felt James's goodwill. Reflecting on what he had previously done to James, he immediately started feeling guilty. After a while, Johnny was finally able to play again. With his aid, the team completely revived. He no longer hogged the spotlight, but rather gave more opportunities to his teammates. All of these changes were influenced by James. However, the better the team performed, the greater the dissatisfaction Johnny's father displayed. He went to the school principal and claimed that without that fool, his son and the team could do even better. Thus, he rallied other parents on the team. Faced with the imposing Johnny's father, they were unsure what to do. Not long after, the coach, accompanied by his family, walked in. "I know some people don't want James on the team, but is he really what you think he is?" When the players are down, James comforts them. During team training, James willingly becomes everyone's practice equipment. It's not us who are teaching and helping James. Rather, he is teaching and helping all of us. "If you insist on making James leave, then I will resign as head coach." After saying this, the coach confidently left the meeting with his family. The parents all appreciated and trusted the coach, so they all directed their anger towards Johnny's father. Johnny's father couldn't say much, as everyone had seen the coach's contributions to the team. The fact that the coach was willing to give up being head coach for James testified to his resolution to keep him around. A few months later, the school celebrated a graduation ceremony. Johnny found James and gave him a team uniform, truly accepting this young individual. James wore his graduation gown and cap. Even though he was graduating from the school, the principal declared that he could stay in the school as long as he wanted. Upon finally receiving approval from the principal, James was so happy that he immediately embraced him. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, over 30 years had passed. James successfully took over the baton from his own coach, becoming the head coach of the school's football team. Even though he was over 50 years old, he was still in touch with and intimately connected with the coach who discovered him. He continuously exhibited his unique charm on the football field. Radio is an American sports biographical film released in 2003, directed by Michael Tollin, and starred by Cuba Gooding Jr., Ed Harris. The film is adapted from real events, with James, now in his 50s, still coaching at the school, and his coach has been inducted into the Coach Hall of Fame. The two of them share a teacher-student and friendship relationship that has greatly influenced each other's lives. The structure of the entire movie is quite simple, with Cuba Gooding Jr.'s performance hailed as exceptional. Although he doesn't have many lines, each fearful look and every peculiar action weighs enormous psychological weight. James is unfortunate, being confined and disgraced just for holding a football. He attempted to give a gift out of kindness, but was mistaken for a criminal. On the other hand, James also encounters luck. No matter what chaos or difficulty he falls into, there is always a man standing behind him, supporting him. The coach is his guardian. James is like a reflection of our initial intentions. Despite knowing the difficulties, we are eager to give it a try. Is this not precisely the way we felt when we were young? There are many people in the world like James, who preserve their genuine human nature, but there are very few coaches belonging to them. As a result, most lead a dull, or even a life accompanied by disgrace. Kindness is the most potent weapon in the depths of the human heart. Physical disabilities should not be a reason for discrimination. May every sincere and kind individual be treated gently by the world.